I don't think you need a background in CRM. I think you need a willingness to work hard. I think you need a desire to make a change, especially if you want to work with nonprofits. And so many people go into the nonprofit sector wanting to make that impact and then get stuck at a certain level. This is an opportunity to pivot. And I've said that a lot. I'm pivoting my career so that I can still support the nonprofit sector that I love in a way that is much more meaningful and much more broad than I could have as a manager or a director of a nonprofit organization. My background is actually in nonprofits. I worked over 20 years in the nonprofit sector. And I have done, I flipped back and forth between community development, program management, facilitation, and academia, research, analysis, that sort of thing. My last position was actually a blend of both. And I ended up working with CRMs, not Salesforce, but other CRMs, and also administering a database that we took from an access to an SQL platform. So I'm very familiar with the client side of how things work for a Salesforce instance, but I hadn't worked with Salesforce itself. Actually, one of the reasons I wanted to get into Salesforce specifically was to help the nonprofit sector. I didn't want to leave the sector entirely, but I just really needed a change. And so the opportunity to work with Salesforce and the nonprofit cloud and support nonprofits just really, really appealed to me, both from the automation piece, because there's just so much that nonprofits struggle with in terms of the time to get things done, and also the use of resources, right? Salesforce just has so many opportunities to build on and to be able to help nonprofits do more than they can ever imagine, frankly. So I was working as a manager, but prior to that, I was actually working as an executive director of 3 senior centers at the same time. That's like 2 chapters in my memoir someday. And I knew that if I wanted to progress again in my career, because I'd taken a step back into a different role, if I wanted to get back to that, I was going to go back to 80-hour weeks for $35 an hour or 35 hours a week pay. I was going to be on call 24/7. And it's just not glamorous. I'm sorry, it's just not. And I didn't want to do that. And I also wasn't 100% sure I wanted to stay in the location I was. I built a great career with the nonprofits in this city, in this region, but I wasn't sure I wanted to stay here forever. I have other family obligations. I have other desires. And so I was looking for something that would allow me to pick up and move if I needed to. And going back to an executive director position meant I was stuck. I would be staying, in that location for 5 years, because that's really what you need to do to devote the time to do a really good job as an executive director. There was just no appeal for that at all for me. And so then I was looking at, where do I go next? What can I do next? What does my skill set allow me to do? And Salesforce popped up on my radar and I went, yeah, okay, let's do that. And then I heard about Talent Stacker and I went, yep, that is the program that I need to move myself to the next level. Because I also recognize that although I can do a lot of it on my own, and I can do a lot of things on my own, I am getting better at asking for help, looking for help, getting people involved in my journey so that I don't have to do it alone. And then I can also turn around and help others as they move into wherever they want to be next. So as a single parent, it was a risk. As someone who had just spent the last 5 years digging her way out of debt, it was a risk. As someone who was working on a nonprofit salary and they're just not that great, it was a risk. But I was a manager, so I was pretty high in the salary for that area. And the ironic thing is the survey I've managed was a compensation survey for nonprofits. So I can say that with total clarity and honesty. I know exactly what I was supposed to be paid. I know exactly what people in my region would be paid. I knew exactly what I would get paid if I moved into the executive director role. So I expected that putting the money down, being involved in the Talent Stacker program, going through the certification process might lead me to a lesser salary in the beginning, but within 5 years, I'd be up above where I was now. And I was wrong, because my contract that I signed was actually higher than the salary that I was receiving as a nonprofit manager. And then on top of that, I get a bunch of perks, including bonuses, for performance, which I've never had as a nonprofit leader at all. So I started playing a little bit with the trails on Trailhead and the badges in March of 2021. My full-time contract ended at the beginning of May of 2021, and I signed on to Talent Stacker at the end of May of 2021, and that's when I got serious about everything. I had also at the same time signed on for what I thought was going to be a small government contract, part-time. Turned out to be many more hours than I thought it was going to be. But I didn't let that deter me. I decided that the goal was to write the certification exam before I had surgery in August. So I had a very clear timeline and a very clear deadline for myself. And so that actually gave me a lot in terms of how I structured my days and how I structured my study time. I prioritized my study group. I had a great study group, still meeting with them. So our study group met 2 hours a week and also talked to each other online when through Messenger or through Slack when we felt we needed each other's support. So that was important. I also participated in the study groups that were offered through Talent Stacker. So that was 1 to 2 hours a week. And then the rest of the time I was devoting to completing badges, doing focus on force, doing the quizzes, and doing notes for myself and studying. And I wanted to devote 3 to 5 hours a day to study, which sounds like a lot, but I was coming in with a completely the exams are multiple choice. I hadn't written a multiple choice test in 30 years. I was so nervous about writing any kind of multiple choice test. So I was learning how to write a test and how to study for that kind of test as much as I was learning the Salesforce material. And so I also again had that very hard deadline I was coming up against. I needed to write that exam in mid-August. And if I hadn't passed, I would have had a 6-week break where I wouldn't have been able to really do anything. So I was driven and I wanted to do the work and I got it done. And I'm damn proud of myself, I gotta say. My nonprofit background was the thing that was opening doors for me. And I was highlighting my nonprofit background in relation to Salesforce on LinkedIn and all my conversations. So I knew I was going to go for the nonprofit cloud certification. I knew that was going to happen. I thought it was going to happen next year. Instead, it might happen this, coming next few weeks, I hope. So I made sure that I was talking to that nonprofit segment of my audience, and I made sure I was connecting with nonprofit consultants and the nonprofit sector in Salesforce. So that's what was opening doors. So if you're pivoting and changing careers, take a look at where you've been and take a look at how that connects to Salesforce and use that to launch you into your first position. You don't have to stay there forever. If you don't like what you're doing, you're making widgets, you don't want to work in the widget part of Salesforce, that's fine. But at least it gets you into your first position and then you can grow from there. So the day that I got the offer, I was not expecting the offer. I hadn't actually started searching. I hadn't sent out any resumes. I hadn't responded to any job posts. I had had a couple of very casual conversations with company owners. And so the conversation I had with this company owner, I was expecting it would just be the same sort of a, hey, we've got, some options in the future. We'd really like to talk to you now. And then at the end of a half-hour conversation, he's like, okay, so let's look at next steps and get you on board. And I was completely shocked, and then had a second conversation with him a week later. Same thing. He's like, yep, we're definitely wanting to get you on board. And so in a matter of weeks, I went from not having any prospects to signing a full-time position in Salesforce. And it was, when I ended the Zoom call, I actually sat there stunned for a few moments and then went and told my daughter that I was employed. So I guess we'd order in some food that evening to celebrate, because again, pandemic, who can celebrate together? And I'm also a very superstitious person. And it turns out my boss is also very superstitious. So neither of us posted anything until the actual day I started. So it was very low key until then. But I did post in a private group to get some excitement going there. And then I also made sure I had told my study buddies, my volunteer project, to let them know that it was happening, but also to inspire them that it was going to happen for them. the opportunity to work remotely so that I can travel to help family members. I have aging parents. I have other family members who have required support. So it's the opportunity to visit them or to be part of their lives in a different way. And also an opportunity to move completely if I decide that the city isn't the place I want to be anymore. It gives me the opportunity to be engaged in a different part of the nonprofit sector. So again, I'm not stuck or limited to one area, geographic or otherwise. I can really connect with a lot of different nonprofits. And I also find that a lot of the nonprofits that are looking toward technology like Salesforce are the ones that get that you need to put the money in to do good work. And so they support their staff, they support their clients. I want to be part of that part of the nonprofit sector. I want to be the part that's growing and that's forward thinking and wanting to really build a great community for everyone. I think community, I know community is really important to me. I did a whole master's degree on it, for Christ's sakes. It's again why I joined Talent Stacker, was I was looking for that community. And so even if I decide to physically relocate, I still have communities that I can draw on through the Talent Stacker Ohana. And I'm just so incredibly grateful for that.